We raised our first round in 23. It was 1.3 million. Now we raised 6.4. The technology is there. We don't have to wait the models to get better to be able to do something. Now it's all about execution.
Welcome to Building Agentic Experiences, the show for founders and product leaders moving from AI features to autonomous agents. I'm Tapio Haaja, CCO of IntentFace, and with me is my co-host Joni Upp, co-founder and CDO of IntentFace. Every episode, we unpack what's working, what's not, and what's next. Our guest today is Jaakko Hartikainen, co-founder and co-CEO of AgileDay. AgileDay is a Finnish PSA platform for consulting and professional services firms, with more than 70 customers across Europe and North America. They just raised 6.4 million euros to push harder on AI, and they recently beat global PSA incumbents at Sealy Solutions, where AI was the deciding factor. Jaakko, can you first tell a little bit what AgileDay do and what PSA actually mean?
For sure, and thanks for having me. Good to be here. So I'll start with explaining a little bit of the background of AgileDay and answering your question in that way. We worked 20 years in consulting ourselves. We were leading consulting companies and businesses and organizations. We were never very happy with the tools we used, especially when we wanted to build very human-centric organizations and leadership and culture. We found out that the best companies in the sector, like Reactors and GoForce and others, they had built their own tools. And I believe the reason being exactly that commercial tools didn't provide that type of design and functionality that was required to build up great culture companies. And that was the thing we realized, that there needs to be a commercial tool that is based on similar principles, humans in the center, really high transparency, engaging all the consultants, providing value to the consultants as well, not only to the management, because many of the traditional tools were designed so that they were very management first type of tools. So that was how everything started. We would have needed the tool ourselves, which we didn't, and then we realized how others had solved this problem, and then we wanted to build the company by ourselves. We didn't know this is PSA when we started. So at some point we realized that there's a software industry called professional services automation, which is basically covering. You could consider that as almost like an ERP of a consulting company. We are, I wouldn't say we necessarily are like full-blown ERP, but we are basically handling everything that happens between your CRM and your financial backend. Whether it's staffing, your CVs, consultant profiles, time tracking, project management, everything that basically is related to the operations you run in a company, which is basically doing consulting or similar work.
Yeah. I think what struck me from at AgileDay is that it's really like people-centric.
Yeah.
So people are not just resources, but
exactly.
How did you sort of how are you approaching that in your product?
A bit of background first again.
Yeah, okay.
So when I was 30ish or a little earlier, I myself really experienced that what good leadership is. So I think my leadership style before that was not very good, to be honest. I was more like, I have to have all the answers, I have to make all the hard decisions and all that. And then when realizing that, okay, it's all about people, it's all about making them the best versions or helping them to become the best versions of themselves and enabling them to take responsibility and be fully engaged in the business, building autonomous teams, building organizations that are networks rather than hierarchies. That was for me personally the pathway that I then choose to embark on. And obviously, this has been then something we have practiced in all the businesses we have been building since then. And then, of course, we wanted to translate all of that experience into the product of AgileDay. And what it means is, of course, that we share a lot of information with everybody. We help them to, every consultant to find interesting projects, to explore what could be there for the next gigs. Who do you want to work with? I mean, which are the consultants that have some experience that you would actually enjoy working with and learn from that? Sharing the business context as well, because I think one of the learnings when we were building our own companies was that actually, like, people who are maybe very technically oriented, if you give them the context, if you really like coach them to understand what this business is and how they can drive the agenda that is in their team's agenda, they're super excited. So that's, I think, the background of the human centricity, and of course then how we are deploying it into the platform, and obviously, like, transparency is one thing that we have been embracing very much in the design of the platform, that we limit only the information that absolutely has to be limited from the visibility perspective. Of course, there are always things like these, but basically everything is open as much as it can.
Yeah, so empowering the people as much as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to AI. You already have quite a lot of AI features in AgileDay, but what was your personal aha moment? For AI.
I basically had like three. So the ChatGPT thing was probably the first. I think especially every non-technical person probably have had that, because obviously the natural language UI is just like it's a fundamental shift when you actually can explain your thinking without being able to code software or do something like that. Then you can actually see immediately what happens. So that was obviously the first one. And Agile was founded in 22. So basically we were able to take AI into account from the very first day. The whole platform is designed from the data structure, from the analytics, from every perspective to be AI native. But in 24 was the next moment when we truly realized that we have to accelerate. We have to double down on AI. We have to move faster, because we just saw that, okay, this is going to be changing the game big time going forward. That was also when we started working with you guys, and that was also bringing new capabilities and new type of thinking into the company to really realize what it takes to become more and more AI native. And then the third is the Q1 26, when Claude started to release all of these new capabilities, which were truly mind-blowing, have to be honest. And of course, the whole SaaS industry has been going through major changes. The valuations have been dropping. SaaS is dead one day, and second day it's again a great industry. But that this has been very much the third, and it's also quite a bit related to how we started to change our own organization very rapidly to become AI native during the last months.
Yeah, one question about that. I'm just curious, like, did everyone buy the AI strategy? What was the evidence you needed for engineers and other co-founders that we should go this AI way?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, in product development, the AI has been there almost from the very first days, because the tools have been, of course, deployed first in developing software, and I think that's been quite easy in one way. And of course, there's always, when you have a team composition, there are a few people who are the ones who are very curious with the new tools. They are all the time testing the new tools. They are pushing the team forward in a positive way. And that has also been the case in our situation. But already, for a long time, major parts of the code has been coded by agents and coded by AI. But now I think that what was the big shift for us during the Q1 26 was that I actually hired one new person who is like vibe coder for life, I would say, like very deeply in this scene, very AI native in thinking, has been studying the domain for 2-3 years and building a lot of things with AI. Having a background actually in business, also background in technical domains, so have been building like in a traditional way back in the days, a very intelligent person. And we have been basically, he was a bit of a catalyst for us to really push us to the next level as a company. And if I give you an example, what we started doing is that when Claude started to release all these new things, and when we saw that, okay, the industry is changing heavily, also our clients are starting to hesitate what to do next, because of course the uncertainty was going like tenfold probably in a very short time. We understood that, okay, we have to reshape our strategy as a company, that, okay, what is our stance on this new environment? And the process how we built the new strategy was so that we facilitated the process with this vibe coder person who basically started building the context for the strategy, and then we had like iterations every morning, like 7 a.m. ish, because nobody had time any other time of the day. And we iterated the work that the agents had done during the night. And we went it through together in a team. And then the evening was always the time when everybody had then time to give inputs to the agent. So like, okay, I would like to, see this going into that direction. This is missing these pieces and all that. And we did basically 6 different iterations during a week. And the outcome, I would say, I mean, I've been through many strategy processes in my life. The outcome is best I've ever seen. It's best I've ever seen in terms of the quality, in terms of the, how much it can reference different sources of data, how evidence-based it is, and how good quality it is. We are, we had it in multiple different formats already, very nice HTML versions for anybody to see, very visual versions, and of course like Word documents if somebody would like to see it in that manner.
Yeah.
So this was done in a week, and what then happened is that of course the work continues from there. I mean, the whole strategy is it's now like codified. It's codified context that is driving every other thing, and now we are building these subcontexts in every area of the business, which is basically feeding the work we do, and the work we do is feeding the context, and you build these loops. And I think this has been the really fundamental thinking change for me, to realize how you build these loops, that you have the context, that you codify, that triggers or impacts the work you do, and the work is better quality because of that. And then the work you get done actually feeds the context again. So this is like, I think it takes you to the next level when you are able to build something like this.
It's like Mikko from Vainu, that was in our other episode, said that this is the time that all the CEOs and everybody needs to be quite hands-on with the AI.
Absolutely.
So we've seen the same thing as consultant, that we can do to a limit things for our clients, but the sort of like AI transformation has to happen inside the company as well.
Absolutely.
So we can, help catalyze that, but like you said, you need to have this internal sort of spark.
Yes.
So it starts, cascading inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's move to product. Can you walk through what kind of AI capabilities or AI features you have already in AgileDay, and how did you decide to do those features?
Yeah, sure. So the very first thing we started to do is to collect data. So designing the data models and everything so that it captures everything that we need in the future, and then collecting that data in an anonymized manner so that we can utilize all that data in the future. And of course, that is like proprietary data that is super important for any SaaS company to own and have, because of course, I mean, any data that is available for anybody is very easy to replicate. So that was the very beginning. And then quite soon we started to actually build like human triggered agents that were designed to do something in the platform that the human would need to do, like, you know, click by click or reading some documents or doing some manual work. And we started to build agents that were just helping you to do that work faster and typically with better quality as well. Those agents, we have more than 10 today in the platform. If I give you an example, I mean, you have a sales opportunity at hand, you have the client RFP or whatever material you might have. A very typical phase in a consulting company is that client is expecting you to give some sort of a response to that, whether it's a proposal or something else. And what you need to do is, of course, to read the RFP, understand the situation, and then start thinking that, okay, how do we deliver this? What kind of a team is needed? What kind of skills are needed? What kind of who could do the work and all that? And how would I price it? And what kind of costs are generated and all that? So the agent does all that. So we give it context to RFPs and everything else. It forms you the optimal team setup. It understands what kind of skills are required, and it does it at the level of quality that is better than human would do, because most of the people who would do this wouldn't read the RFP at that level that I actually tag every skill and requirement here. They would do it like, okay, roughly I understand, and then I'll use my gut feeling to actually find the people. It connects it to the budget that's there, the sales opportunity size, all this context is utilized there. And all this happens, you know, in 60 seconds. And for a person to do this, I think it would be at least hours to do all the work.
More than 60 seconds.
Definitely more. I think this is a great example of how we can actually just, you know, make things happen faster and with better quality. And this was the first phase, because this is like, you know, replicating the human's work with AI and making it happen faster. And then the next things we of course started building is, or if I frame a bit what we are building today, is obviously the MCP server is I think it's more or less hygiene as a fact. I mean, if you are a proper SaaS company and you wouldn't have that, I think you are not in a very good position. But I think then the interesting part is that MCP server, I mean, those are of many quality levels. So just saying out loud that, okay, I have an MCP server basically means nothing, because we've seen that some of the vendors have built something that doesn't really work very well. And if you want to build a very good MCP server, it actually requires quite a bit of work. So just understanding what the clients are aiming to do with that, building all those tools. And of course, MCP is much more than just tools as we know. So that has been, of course, a major effort to build. Currently, we are also piloting a chat UI inside the product as well, because, of course, there are still users who want to log in, but we can just reduce, you know, the amount of clicks they have to do in the platform and help them to get to whatever their intent is inside the platform much easier than what it would take to start navigating in a traditional way. And finally, autonomous agents is the next level. So building agents that are working not only when the user is triggering them, but actually when there's right time to do something, whether it's the night to recognize all the projects that require attention, or whether it's the consultant whose assignment is ending and we want to serve him with nice next potential assignments or whatever. And of course, on top of this are then the more like workflow agents who can actually utilize all these sub-agents. So there are so many different aspects to it that it's super exciting.
And I've sort of seen this, that the MCP servers is a really hot topic, and I think we've talked about it on almost every episode now. But the reality is
maybe we can change this to MCP podcast.
MCP podcast, yeah. But the reality is also that people work in various sort of like enterprise settings, and not everybody has access to Claude or ChatGPT, or even if they have, they don't know how to set that up. So
Exactly.
that sort of like AI chat inside AgileDay might be an easier access to a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the data governance questions come to the table immediately.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, we are dealing with data that is related to people, their skills, their information, and things like this. Many of our clients, they just they are just finding the ways how to utilize MCP in which clients, where is the data going to reside. And all that. So even if the capabilities are there are these questions very relevant. And that is exactly what, as you said, providing tools inside the platform is also a way to accelerate this to happen faster. And also, I think that some of the use cases will live inside the platform for some time still, because I mean there are use cases where the more traditional UI is very helpful as well. So not probably everything will happen through only the chat UIs.
I think I heard the quote sellable, billable from someone from AgileDay. So how do you measure the value of AI inside AgileDay? So what metric would tell you the AI work is actually paying back?
That's a good question. There are multiple ways, of course, to try to understand what's the value, and very much of that happens with the dialogue with the clients. They know their work, they know how much more efficient it is. We have different profiles who are using AgileDay, people who are staffing teams, people who are more from the HR part, people who are business unit leaders. So having a dialogue with the clients and being very close to the clients is super important. If you think about like MCP development, we actually track all the intents that clients have, what they try to do with that. We have very, very clear analytics on how well are we actually being able to fulfill their needs. When it comes to, of course, RFPs where we are participating, we can see that, okay, how clients are rating us towards the competition in terms of, for example, AI. And there we have been super good. So basically, I think that more or less in all the RFPs we have been in the pole position regarding to the AI capabilities. And then, of course, I mean, in the end, it's a combination of all different factors that you can recognize and understand. And of course, we have then just the traditional analytics of how much different things are used in the platform. So at the moment, I think it comes through multiple sources of data, how we can track the value of the AI.
Yeah. Okay, you have really good win rate in competitive evaluations against global PSA incumbents. Global companies have more engineers, more capital, more customers. Why are they losing on you?
When we have been building AgileDay, we haven't too much focused on competition, to be honest. We didn't start the business in the way that, okay, let's analyze first all the competition that there is in the world and then build something different. We started building a tool that we would have loved to use ourselves, which of course then has led to a situation that we start to meet competition at some point, of course, and now we have been against them. I think, I mean, the PSA software industry is well established. It's 15 billion industry. So there are many companies that are outcome of multiple, acquisitions, integrations. There's a lot of legacy code inside those platforms. They were designed originally, back in the 10 years ago, whatever. So I think that is one reason. So these softwares, which might look very nice in when you go to the website of the vendor, are actually a legacy software. Yeah. And we all know that it's not so easy to change that. Then I think that other thing is that it's just when you are smaller, you can move very fast. You can execute so super fast. So obviously everybody who has been leading an organization of hundreds of people or whatever knows that it's change happens not at the speed of what it can happen in a team of 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever. So I guess these are the practical reasons, to be honest. And of course, I mean, the AI enables you to build things with more limited resources. So you don't have to have the army of people and coders. And that is, of course, also embracing the opportunity for the smaller teams to actually disrupt markets like these.
You mentioned that you have quite a lot of like internal processes elevated by AI. You mentioned this strategy work. Are there other areas that you've been able to sort of like?
Onboarding new clients is a major area because obviously onboarding a system like this requires that you migrate your existing data there, you integrate it with different systems, and there's a change management that needs to be done so that everybody is onboarded and all of that. So we have built a lot of tools to actually accelerate this process very much. I mean, very good example is, for example, a data migration tool that can just, learn the system that it's getting the data from, like almost automatically, understand what the data is and map it automatically to our data structure and run this whole process more or less without human touch. And this is fully vibe coded system, like nothing else than vibe coding. Obviously security checks and vetting a lot of things. We are very, very sort of sensitive with security topics because obviously we are dealing with operational real client business data.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it is mind-blowing what you can build at these times. And how you can, the value add is, of course, that when the client opens their tenant the first time, we have all the data there, and they are like, okay, how is this possible? So it's a great experience. It's a fast process. It's cheap. It's everything good.
And just a minor thing that I've noticed that I've talked with a lot of SaaS companies, and there are some who have sort of like a legacy software. And even if they leverage coding AI, agentic coding, things like that, they can't really move as fast as someone who is building on a more modern stack.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of visible in your processes, that when you have sort of embraced the AI, the speed has gone up to a point that everybody's like, how can this be so fast?
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
That is true. And of course, what we also see is that then easily the bottlenecks move just into another place. So obviously, I mean, when your coding gets faster, then it's all the deployment, the QA, all that part becomes a challenge. Soon the bottleneck moves into product management.
Yeah.
That how can we feed and make decisions on that side fast enough? And all of that, and design is also a very interesting topic in here. And I think design is a very interesting topic overall with AI, because I think it's not so straightforward that what is the optimal way to utilize AI in design, because I think there is still so much of the sort of a human empathy understanding and problem understanding and really. Because AI can build very beautiful things which look perfect when you see them first time. And then when you start to dig deeper, you start to realize that, okay, it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And then you can also notice that AI has this sort of a flavor in its design, which everybody can recognize. And that is also becoming a bit of, I feel that people are becoming soon a little bit allergic for that. Yeah. So it's a super interesting topic, very contradictory in one way, that how this area will
I think most of the time, like all the one-shot AI is quite AI slop.
Yeah.
When it's text or image or whatever. But in text, it's easier to iterate right now.
Yes.
But in visual and in design, it's much more complex.
Correct.
So it's usually like the one-shot design layout, and it looks AI-ish usually.
But how do you approach that now that you can like build really fast and you can basically like build anything? How do you decide what to build?
Yeah, we well, it comes very much from the clients. Obviously, our product vision has been on a very high level. It's been almost unchanged from the very beginning. The hypothesis, what needs to be built, has been more or less the same. The prioritization comes very much from the client discussion, and then of course from the strategy. So strategy is driving the AI enablement and development very, very strongly, and then clients of course have needs that we want to fulfill and build the platform forward. And then of course we have certain like hypotheses of where world is going in 3 or 5 years and where we need to be in terms of that. So it's a combination of long-term strategy, shorter term like tactical investments, and then the client prioritization.
Where do you think world is going?
Well, I believe that we are helping our clients basically in 2 major changes at the moment. So one change is that how do you automate your operations? Because of course the AI, the agents, they can run multiple parts of what still is very manual work. And what that enables is of course that those companies can be much leaner. They can be much more, they can grow their business to a double of the size they are today without adding any additional like overhead or whatever you want to call it. And AgileDay has, of course, a major role there because we are basically running the operations of these companies, and that's why we are deploying all these agents and automation into the platform. And the clients can, of course, build their own agents on top of that. The second thing is that we help our clients to actually to make AI billable for them, because at the moment the consulting industry that we are serving, especially the tech-oriented consulting, is in the challenge that Agile was what introduced the time and material type of business model very heavily. Because back in the days, 20 years ago, when Agile was more or less still like a fresh thing in the world, it was obvious that, it's no more waterfall. You can't decide the price before you start building, and then you just have to trust the process and see what comes out. Now the time and material in the age of AI is in challenges because, of course, AI is starting to do a lot of the work. And if you only and mainly charge for the hours that your consultants are doing, you are in a declining business because those hours are not needed anymore so much. And of course, our clients are challenged to find ways to actually charge for the value they are generating in a new ways. And this is also a fundamental shift we see happening in the world where we are helping our clients and building these capabilities into the software.
What I've noticed is that the sort of like the middle is thinning. So before you spend a lot of time like coding the solution,
yes,
and that was the sort of thing that you built for.
Yeah.
But now the sort of coding work is becoming much more faster. You spend more time specifying and more time sort of evaluating.
Yes.
And still things take time, even though LinkedIn and X says that you can one-shot everything. Anybody who's worked with generative AI or coding tools know that you really can't one-shot anything complex. You always need to iterate and sort of like look after it, and then comes the security questions and stuff like that. So you still need to sort of spend time, but how you spend the time, how you build it, how much of that sort of like work is built by the agent that you're using. Yes. These are really interesting times to be in consulting, like from our perspective and looking at how you're approaching that. So it's like a big change in business, I think.
It is.
Will we go back to some sort of waterfall model at some point? If we like the models are getting better, so they will also get better at estimating what something takes.
We are definitely going into a world which is
or like fixed price or like outcome based. Sort of like
fixed price is increasing. I mean, Accenture just revealed their quarterly or yearly report. Their financial year is going in a little bit different cadence than others. Basically, they revealed that the amount of fixed price is increasing quite a lot because of this. Another thing that I think is which is impacting the fixed price is, of course, that you can actually prototype the solution so that the validation of what would be built is much easier in the types of AI. So basically, you can have a prototype which is describing what we will be building, and then actually it might make sense to have a fixed price because then everybody understands. I mean, back in the days, it was some Word documents that tried to explain that, okay, we have these requirements and nobody really understood what the platform or solution will be.
Yeah, and then those strategies rarely held up with the real world.
No,
so when you have the
it was-
specification and then you build it and then you're like, oh no.
Exactly. It was not good for anybody.
Yeah.
But these days, of course, this prototyping where AI is a huge advantage is I think, the key to also go for, let's say, healthy fixed price business. So I think we will see much more of that going forward.
Let's move to hot topic. You just raised 6.4 million euros on an AI basis. Concretely, what does that round buy that you could not have built a year ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. So bit of background. We raised our first round in 23. It was 1.3 million. Now we raised 6.4 from international VCs. First of all, of course, raising in these times is a validation itself that you are building something that is relevant, because I mean those VCs are getting like thousands of opportunities all the time, which they are screening, and only very, very few go through to actually successful round. So that was the process itself was very, very valuable for us as well to really understand where we are in terms of AI, in terms of our maturity, in terms of our vision, and that validation was very strong. So there were multiple investors who wanted to invest in us. We discussed both with European and Silicon Valley investors. And obviously, now the investment is very much going into AI and deploying AI at the speed of what we think is needed to take a real advantage in this area. The technology is there. We don't have to wait the models to get better to be able to do something. Now it's all about execution. And execution, of course, requires that we have a capable team and enough people to do all of this. And of course, we couldn't maybe do that if we didn't have enough resources backing it up. So super nice situation. Fundraising hasn't been too easy for startups for the past, I don't know how long. And if you wouldn't be strong enough in AI, it's impossible to raise at the moment. So the validation is very strong.
Yeah, AI roadmap probably was a critical component to have in those.
Definitely,
yeah.
and the roadmap is not even enough. I mean, you have to be able to showcase.
Yeah.
You have to be showing that, okay, this is what we have already, and the vision has to be very crisp.
Okay, we are getting near to end, but let's go back to personal. So where do you personally use AI or agents right now outside AgileDay?
One of the founder friends of mine just said that if you have any other task at hand which doesn't require a video meeting or online meeting, and you can't do it with AI, it's not about AI, it's about your skills. So all the work you do, you should be able to basically do with these tools, whether it's Claude, whether it's something else. I'm not yet quite there. I'm getting there. And of course, we are as an organization pushing every one of us to find the ways and find the time to find the ways to utilize AI as the totally, the native tool. And of course, taking security and all these things very, very seriously, because I mean, when you give access to agents in your laptop or environments, it's the hard sort of restrictions are not always easy to build. So we take that, of course, very seriously. So that is the process we are all going through at the moment in the company. And sometimes it also requires that you just push yourself to do the things in the different way with AI. And the first time you do it, it's slower. I mean, it's slower than if you would have done it by yourself. Yeah. Next time, it's probably the same time. And from that on, it will be faster, many times faster than you would have ever done it by yourself. I'm also limited by some of the tools we use, which are not having MCP. So, for example, our finance or accounting tool doesn't have it. So I'm like, okay, when can we get it so that I can start doing things less manually or not through that interface? So that is, of course, also something that is a bit bothering.
Yeah, the world is sort of catching up.
Yeah.
Maybe final question. What inspires you in AI right now, and what are you watching? Like, is there anyone you want to point listeners at?
Sure. I'm excited. I mean, in our context, AI could be maybe divided in two. One is how we deploy AI in the product. One is how we build AI native company. I'm very excited about both, but the AI native company part is also very exciting because what we discussed earlier about these like closed loops that you codify context for certain areas, whether it's your strategy, whether it's your positioning, whether it's your go-to-market context, whatever the context is, you build these loops that are actually feeding the work, and the work is feeding back the context, and it becomes the intelligence layer of the company over time. And then the aim is, of course, that every process, every decision, everything will go through that intelligence layer. We are, of course, not there yet, but we know exactly where we want to be and where we want to go. And there hasn't been better time to build that type of setup. So that is super exciting. Then to name a person to follow, we have built a system that is basically providing us signals from all multiple different, thought leaders, and that is feeding our strategy, that is feeding our view of the world. But if I name one, I actually select Karri Saarinen from Linear. I think that he has, Linear has been a great success, obviously. Also disrupting quite established industry, vendors like Jira and others, doing it in very opinionated way, not trying to build something that you can configure to work in whatever way you want, but actually they have a very strong opinion how things should be done, and then how they have executed and implemented AI has been something that we have been following very closely, because I think they have been very clever in how that has been done. And I think that Karri has very balanced view also on the benefits of AI, but also the challenges of AI. So I think obviously it's nice to say, because he's originally Finnish, even if not living here anymore. Great success story, but I think that all SaaS builders should definitely follow at least him. There are many others.
Yeah, it's easy to agree. I think almost weekly someone posts some Karri's post to our internal Slack also. So yeah. Anything else? Should we have covered something? Did we miss something?
No, not really. A very good discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Jaakko.
Thank you.
Thank you.